the general evaluator.
I can do it, but I don't have a job, so.
Emily? Okay, sure. Thank you.
I thought you had a job.
I think I was supposed to be an evaluator for speaker one, and I don't think there's a speaker one,
Oh,
right?
okay.
There's no speaker one, right? There's only one speaker, right? I think I
Yeah.
was supposed to evaluate someone, and I'm not now because.
So yeah, it's just speaker
they
2.
dropped,
So evaluator 2. So Ivan will be evaluator.
So I could.
And then would anybody
So
like
I've got
to
a
just take the
paper I have to fill out or anything? Or
General evaluator?
yeah.
Okay. Thank you to everyone for taking the role, and I know Alyssa grabbed the PowerPoint, so we're all set there. Don't have any announcements. Okay, so welcome to the meeting, and the first thing that I would like to do is ask for the general evaluator to introduce their evaluator team and just what the general evaluator role is.
Okay. All right. So I will be evaluating the full meeting and all the different parts of the speaker and other roles. And as to I have other team members, and I guess if each of you have one guest, if you could describe what you're doing so she can understand the different roles. So we have a timer. It's Eric. If you could just say a sentence about what you'll be doing.
Sure. I will be timing the meeting, and I don't have actually any of my props listed here right now, but I will be needing those, and I will be timing each segment of the meeting, and certain segments have appropriate time windows to hit, and so at the appropriate time window, I'll flash a green, a yellow, and a red folder indicating that they're on time, approaching the end of the time and then overtime, and reporting that to everyone once the meeting is over.
And then have an odd counter.
Yes, I'm Elisa. I'm the odd counter. I will be listening for ahs, ers, any clutch words throughout the whole meeting with the speakers, and then we'll do a report at the end.
And then we'll have one person evaluating specifically Matt's speech. I'm not sure if that's you.
I'm Ivan Talido. I'm going to be doing an evaluation of the, so the subject is resources for informing. So that will be the evaluation. And I have the manual here.
And then we also
Can
have.
I just read the criteria real quick? There's a criteria box if you flip back one page.
Oh.
In the 2 pages. Yeah, the blue.
Okay.
Objective, yeah. So
Pages.
Yeah. So the objectives are analyze your audience regarding your chosen subject. Second one, focus your presentation on the audience level of knowledge. Build a supporting case for each major point using information. Effectively use at least one visual aid to enhance the audience's understanding. Time 5 to 7 minutes.
And then the last role is it gives Lori for meeting minutes.
Oh,
Or
sure.
if you could just describe.
Oh, sure. I'll be taking the meeting minutes, and I record everything that goes on during our meeting, start time, end time, and then I review all the table topics at the end of the meeting, and there's a vote, and then I will publish the meeting minutes for the other members that could not be here.
Thanks. I think that's everyone.
And before we go to word of the day, I just see that we have one guest, and so if you could just stand and say your name and just a brief introduction about yourself.
I'm Dana Daly, and excuse me, I wasn't expecting this. So, and I'm a pain scientist in research, and Gary Gillette is promoting my presence here, so I'm feeling guilty. And I will be here for his next talk, which he was supposed to give today. So I will come back again in the future, but I'm just sort of kind of get a sense of how all of this flows and see maybe if I want to participate in the future.
Great.
Welcome,
Thank you.
welcome.
name is Wan Zhang. As a word of the day, I provide a word of the day in the speech or evaluation. The word of the day is furtive, meaning marked by quiet, caution, or secrecy. An example would be a furtive kiss. Back to you.
Thank you. And if we have a minute for an invocation, I'd like to call upon invocator. It will be Eric. Just some brief words of focus on us.
Mr. Toastmaster. Our invocation today is right. The invocation is typically done at the beginning of the meeting, and it starts off just with some either words of wisdom or a non-denominational saying or motivational phrase. And so this week's invocation comes from Gerald Bernard Shaw, and I have no idea who he is, but I think he hit it right on the head when he said, life is not about finding yourself, life is about creating yourself. And I think that's a great testament to Toastmasters and what we do here every week. We try to create ourselves and better ourselves in at least this little window of time, our public speaking and meeting engagements. So it's a great testament to everyone here and bettering ourselves. So
Great, thank you. And next, I'd like to call up our first speaker of the day, or rather our only speaker for the day. It's going to be Matt Daly. And
Thanks, Darren.
I have a few words. You may have noticed that Matt has been absent from a number of Toastmasters meetings recently. Today, he would like to inform you that he was not skipping club commitments, but rather taking the Toastmasters on tour to Atlanta, Georgia. During his most recent trip, Matt was able to apply Toastmaster skills to a number of customer and internal electronic interactions. His speech today is entitled Toastmasters on Tour, the 2012 American Neurological Association Annual Meeting. Please welcome Matt.
In Toastmasters, we talk a lot about how the skill sets we develop here can be applied to other situations, and we haven't actually had too many speeches that have directly explained situations where that has been the case. So today I'd like to talk about a trip that Darren and I actually both took to Atlanta to go to the American Neurological Association annual meeting and explain how a number of Toastmasters skills really came in handy at the right place at the right time. So to give a little bit of background on the trip, I traveled to Atlanta from May 16th to 23rd. The primary objectives of the trip were actually twofold. The first 2 days of the trip, I did some field visits with sales reps and physicians that worked with pain patients in spinal cord stimulation. And then the rest of the trip, which is when Darren arrived as well, we attended the American Neurological Association annual meeting. And my particular objective was to get physician feedback on some new designs for an InterStim product design. To reiterate, Toastmaster skill sets were definitely critical, and I'll go into the specific details of how that was the case. So as an overview, there are two different, we talk about the elevator speech, and this was actually a topic in one of the Toastmasters magazines about 6 months back. This became extremely important. I didn't even realize how important it was to be able to get your point across really quickly to people who are not necessarily there to hear everything that you have to say. You need to be able to create relevance and provide detail very quickly. So I have two examples of this. And then also our cartoon animation table topics here. There was also a situation where I was called on to speak impromptu in front of a crowd that I would definitely not have wanted to have fumbled in front of. And and fortunately, having had the experience done it before, I'd like to think it went reasonably well. Darren could probably provide you with a more candid review later if you so desire. So part one, the elevator speech. When it comes to pain stim physician meetings, I ended up meeting with over 10 physicians in the span of 2 days. It actually ended up being probably about 15 to 20 because every time we went into a doctor's office with a rep that knew one doc, he also happened to know 3 others that were also trying to get the spiel really quickly. Bottom line is, I thought it was going to be like our customer experience visits like we have here. We sit down for an hour with physicians and really explain our company history and our specifics of why our products are built with the highest quality. It wasn't anything like that at all. Actually, I had about 3 to 5 minutes with some of these physicians, and what I didn't realize going in is that reps were essentially begging, borrowing, and stealing resources just to get those 5 minutes with doctors, and a lot of times they would be about to go in to see a patient, and they'd say, all right, well, I've got 5 minutes, not even that, tell me what you got, and explain everything that I need to know, and they're already kind of walking past you, so you've got a table here. Fortunately, I had my little bag of tricks here. I kind of felt like the corporate version of The Wizard of Oz meets Mary Poppins. But the 2 main areas we were talking about were lead steering and anchoring. So what I would do was beforehand talk to the sales rep about what specifically this physician was disgruntled about in particular, and then, or what they would be most, what they would benefit most from learning about, and then we would go in and hit the high points first, and then kind of gradually ease into the less relevant points for each doctor. I think the biggest win was we had one doctor that was 100% St. Jude and was complaining about our lead steerability, and he literally only had about 3 to 5 minutes, so we came in and immediately started talking about the lead design, and suddenly those 3 to 5 minutes turned into 15 to 20 because he was interested in what we had to say. By the time we left, he had at least considered and said, you know what, maybe, he talked to the hospital manager and said, make sure I remember to at least look into Medtronic. So we at least planted that seed in his mind and were able to kind of have those discussions and make him reconsider, but it was only through getting those key points across first, quickly, in a succinct manner. What can you do for me? Essentially, you have to be able to walk in and understand. They need to know immediately what you provide to them, and that was the key to the elevator speech in this situation. In the second example, this is when we were working on the customer feedback that I mentioned. We essentially were looking to get about 15 to 30 physicians in about 4 days with 2 different projects. And in terms of selling the survey experience, the challenge here was they weren't being paid, and physicians are normally paid $300 to $400 an hour to give feedback on our products. So the key here was really to meet them, sell them on the experience first, and what we were able to tell them is they would have the opportunity to learn more about our upcoming products and what we were doing to address their customer needs. And in that process, we would also be completing a survey to make sure we documented all of that feedback. Again, we had maybe 30 to 60 seconds when we first met a physician to convince them that this is something that they should spend 30 to 45 minutes on of their time in a conference. We ended up getting about 30 physicians, so it did work out well, but again, had I gone off on any kind of tangents where the information wasn't as relevant, it would have been really easy to lose that physician's attention and potentially lose their input. So again, having had experience here of speaking directly and succinctly, that was extremely critical here. Additionally, when we actually got them into the room, we had to optimize that window of time because they were in there and we had their full attention then, but after they were gone, they were gone. So I have the Wicked Witch turning the hourglass upside down because it wasn't very long. I think her line was, "It's not very long, my pretty, that's how long you have to live." But in this situation, it was more that that pressure of the time was very important. And again, having those succinct conversations was very important to optimizing our experiences and getting that feedback. Now for table topics, this is the section of our meeting where we have somebody come up and then we ask an impromptu question. We had what was called an AUA debrief at the end of each day, and we had everybody, all employees that were at the conference review the input. And now this was a wide variety of positions here, which was something I wasn't expecting, and I had this kind of Ural the Turtle pyramid to represent where I was on the pyramid. So we had the general manager, vice president, our fearless core team leader, Darren here, the district manager, sales rep, and then very much down the line, in terms of rank, was me down there, and I actually got called on by our marketing guy to give a summary of what we had learned from our tech suite and the feedback. So Take a deep breath. There were just many people that you wouldn't ordinarily have the opportunity to speak in front of. So I was immediately able to think of, okay, what's in it for them, what did they get out of it, and what I was able to speak to was, one, first of all, there was an expression of gratitude for the fact that many of the doctors came in because we were able to call in connections through sales reps. So first of all, put that thank you out there, and additionally explain that we were able to get a number of physicians excited about the new designs, as well as valuable feedback to iterate for the next design cycle. So I think it went reasonably well. It was a little nerve-wracking to be called on in front of that kind of a crowd to speak, but having had the experience here, it definitely made it a lot easier, and I did take the time to pause instead of saying at least twice. I wrote this distinctly. Because those pauses felt like the world's longest period of silence, but I wanted to make sure I was getting it through. So again, that impromptu speaking was definitely critical here. So to wrap up, during this Atlanta trip, I covered both a field visit as well as the American Neurological Association meeting. Elevator speeches in two particular situations were definitely critical. Table topics, impromptu speaking. We talk about how many times you could be called on at a particular time to speak. And it happened. So I can tell you it's valuable to have those skill sets and be ready to go, and having had that experience. Again, Toastmaster skill sets were definitely critical. I would say it made the difference between just being an also attended versus actually engaging with people that were there. I think our group here in Rice Creek and the Microsim and Anderson team that Darren and I are on were able to really make valuable connections internally and externally that will benefit the group professionally moving forward. So thank you, Toastmasters, for creating an environment where we can develop these skills so that we can use them when they really do end up being necessary. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, for the next 3 to 5 minutes, we'll fill out our evaluation forms. And do that. Now, that's amazing that you were just put on the spot so many times like that. You do a good job.
You got to be on all the time when you're out like that.
I can imagine just even to grab their attention if they're just walking past you and have to pull them in, get them interested.
Right.
Excellent. right on the spot, you can come up with something. You don't have to speak for very long, just a minute to 2 minutes. We have our timer who will let you know how you're doing. And for our table topics today, we have Michelle Hines, our table topics presenter.
See you, Stephen. Hello. Today I have put together some questions, and they're all basically about personal development or just about how people react to situations. Just an FYI. I think I'm going to pick people today instead of ask for volunteers. So, well, we got to pick Alan. Thank you.
Michelle?
Can you share with us a defining moment that helped create who you are today?
I can do that. Thank you for including me as Table Topics Master. I did furtively sneak in during Matt's speech, and I knew that you would pick on me as well, because I obviously don't have a role today. I didn't think I would use the word of the day, Deborah K. electronic.com, but in place of that, I furtively mentioned it already. But I would like instead to tell you about a moment in my life that helped shape me to who I am. Well, not so long ago I gave a speech about my shaved head. Some of you were here for that. And I didn't realize that by mentioning something, just bringing it up as a minor part of my speech, that it would distract people from paying attention to the rest of my speech. Because I just mentioned, as an aside, that I was once a Buddhist monk. And I thought I'd just mention that and move on to the next thing. But I guess it seemed to be like a record scratch for a lot of people. Say what? So I don't have a lot of time to get into the details, but I do believe that was something that shaped me as an individual, spending time in Thailand, wearing the robes of a Buddhist monk, and leading a very simple life with no possessions. I spent much of my day meditating and contemplating what life is about, and I'll tell you, it was a very difficult thing, going from the Western civilized world to my mother's native Thailand, and then being swept up in a world where there's only eating twice a day, having no money, and having no possessions. It was very difficult, but I really felt that I found something about myself, an appreciation for the simple parts of life, by the everyday, very simple routine of a Buddhist monk's life. So that's the thing that I'd like to share with you today. Thank you.
Darren, would you mind? Thank you. Do you feel grown up? Please share why or why not.
Do I feel grown up? Actually, I think it's a shame to grow up, because when you get old, you get boring. People expect you to be serious all the time, but it's no fun being serious all the time. I think that I tried being grown up for a while. I tried to pretend that I was somebody I wasn't, and what I found is I'm just young at heart and crazy, and now Matt knows for sure that I do not try to act grown up. I try to be who I am. And I would say that I think that that's probably the recipe for happiness, is to not pretend that you're grown up, pretending you're somebody that you're not, but to be yourself, and you'll be happier.
Thank you. John? Okay, who did you like better, mom or dad? Or was there someone else in your childhood who had a strong influence on you?
Wow, you know, that's of course the unfair question, right? So,
They're not here. It's
They're
okay.
not
We
here.
won't tell them.
yeah, and literally they're not here at all, you know, they're passed away now, but there's something to admire in both. And so you know, of course, it's like many of you, I'm sure if you're put in the spot, you wouldn't answer that question with it's mom or it's dad, right? So you like them each for one or the other. My dad was a very good man who, you know, did his duty, and he was of that generation, the greatest, both of them from that great generation that, you know, sacrificed, and he sacrificed for us kids. We saw that, and it always stays with me. So always remember that. And your mom, you know, she lived on longer than my dad, and provided a very good example of endurance, you know, and offering up many times through hardships and things. But you know, so I have to say, you know, they're both winners, you know, and I was glad to have our mother along a lot more and a lot longer than my dad. You know, that was a real blessing. And I have to say, it was kind of interesting after I got married how my wife kind of started asking her questions that we kids would never ask, you know. And I'll forget the time at a restaurant she asked, Dolores, did you ever have a favorite doll? And it just, you know, who would ever ask a mom something like that, you know? And her answer was just very touching, and tells some stories about life back during the Depression, and really, really touching. So things I carry with me, you know, things I admire them both for us.
Let's see. When did you really begin to feel like time goes by too fast?
Time started to go by pretty too fast when I had my first child. And then I had some time to enjoy that child, and then we got pregnant again, and I had twins, and so I had 3 in diapers actually, and it went really fast. It's a blur. It was a lot of work, and then it just keeps going fast as they grow older, and I don't know, it's time to keep up. I mean, it's gonna be Christmas soon.
The reason I had asked is because I have a 5-year-old now, and to her, a day is forever. Friday is so far away. Oh my God, wait till we have kids. Let's see. Do we have any volunteers? Anyone that would like to speak? Want some? And Tom, how many more do you think?
We can do at least a couple.
Okay. Have you ever gotten involved in a conflict that was not concerning you in order to protect someone else?
Can you say that again?
Have you ever gotten involved in a conflict that was not concerning you in order to protect someone else?
Comes from me to Yeah, I think I've been doing good in that perspective. I haven't been involved in a lot of fights, or I've been doing pretty good in school, house school. But one that I talked about this couple months back. So I was in graduate school and I had like fist fight with a fellow student, not to particularly protect anybody, probably just my not full grown up. Part of me still want to, go back, do that, probably do that again, but a better part of me, learn from the accident, learn at least, try to control part of me that is not, not to hurt anybody. So that's my story.
Can you share a situation where you or someone else went far out of the way to help a person in need?
Okay, well, far out of the lead. When John started talking about his parents, actually, I just started thinking about my mom, and I can't think of an exact example, but in general, I just think of all the times that now that I'm older, I can see how much she was helping us out and doing everything for me and my brothers when, other people's parents I knew maybe weren't doing that. I mean, she gave up her career to stay with us and raise us, and that's one of the examples I can think of going really, yes, we are her kids, but but there's different levels of things you can do for your kids, and that's one thing that stands out to me.
I have one more, but yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Name one person you would like to interview, but likely never will, and what would be the first question?
Wow. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and very honored guest. I would like to interview God. Boy, when I think of it, I just think it would be awesome. I don't know if that's something he would want to do or if I should even be talking about it, but to me, he's just awesome and he's up there. And if I could interview him, the question would be, how does he forgive everybody? I'm always, when I drive to work and the car kind of ticks me off, I force it out and think, oh my gosh, I can't do that, make me a better person. I'm always praying to him, and he is just so loving and giving and loves us all, and if I could just see the world through his eyes or just see a portion of it, I think it would just be amazing, what he's done, what he's given us, the world that he created. It would just, I think, be a true experience. Yeah, just like
No. All right. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Next up, we are going to move into the part of the meeting where we begin the evaluations. And for that, first we'll call up our speaker, Matt, and his evaluation.
I think most of the people here are familiar with the Toastmaster process and also with the subject of your presentation and the product itself. So that was really well chosen. And you also provide us the timeline of the tour and the goals of the tours. That part was really clear. the visuals, you use a PowerPoint and you have some pictures, and you also have an example of a bag with the product, so that helps us to understand more. I had the impression you were very knowledgeable about the process itself and the product, so that was a very good point. And there was a really good blending of the Toastmaster learning and the subject of the speech. That's all that I have. Thank you.
And next we will have Emily introduce one more time the members of her team to present their individual evaluation. You can just from your seat or.
First we'll go with her. That's okay. So I thought everything went really, really well today, and I want to thank Tom for filling in as Toastmaster the last minute and really keeping the meeting running on time. And it's great that we had a guest join us today too, and I know Gary's not here, but props to Gary for bringing a friend. And then thanks to Eric also for giving the implication off the top of his head. Overall, the meeting went really well. I really enjoyed hearing Matt's speech, and I always like to hear about different roles people have at Medtronic, and it's always interesting when we come to these meetings and we hear about people's hobbies and different experiences they've had. And I leave the meeting and realize I have no idea what this person does at Medtronic. But I find out later, through over time, but everyone has kind of an interesting role. There's so many different areas for Medtronic. I always enjoy hearing about some of that part as well as your hobbies. And I thought your presentation could be really good for kind of selling people on why they should join Toastmasters. So I guess we'll go into the other parts of the evaluation and go first to the timing report from Eric.
Our word of the day one's on. I'm sorry I didn't quite catch it. If I had to guess, I'd probably say about 47 seconds. The invocation came right in at 101, not 2 seconds too many. Matt, your speech was at 8:44. Yvonne, your evaluation was at 1:06. Not sure if the table topics master speaking time is exactly relevant, but you were around about 26 seconds. Let's see, let's go to the table topics. Speakers, Alan at 2 minutes, 17 seconds. Darren, you were at 46 seconds. John, 1:48. Eliza, 44. Wanzan, 1:39. Emily, 50 seconds. And Lori, 1 minute, 15 seconds. Did I miss anybody? I think that's it.
Next we'll go to Elisa for our accounting.
Great. So for Tom, as a Toastmaster, I have 1 and. Eric, invocation, 2 and a so. One's on, I didn't have anything for word of the day. Matt, I heard a few ums, a few ands, a few so's, and a couple ahs. I got the exact numbers if you like.
She wants to be furtive.
Were double clutches in there too?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll talk offline afterwards.
Michelle, I had you as 1 and for table topics master. Alan, I didn't have anything for Alan. He was just so engrossed in your talk. And then Darren, I didn't. Oh, here we go over here. A couple I thinks. So you started out sentences with I think twice. So I don't know if that's acceptable or not, but it's on the form. John, a few ahs, a few you knows, a couple and,
Par, right?
Emily is general evaluator, some ands, and so, and you did it, I think. And they had that as wimpy words in this form. Those I think, or sort of, kind of, just so you guys know. Ivan as evaluator number 1, 2 ands, 1 so. And then I'm sorry, I mixed up my table topics amongst all the others too. So Juan's on table topics, Emily table topics, some and, well, and Eric. Okay, I already told you yours. And then Lori, we had an I think is what I captured, so there were a few
That wraps up the general evaluations. Back over to Tom.
Thank you, Emily, for the general evaluation. And next, we get to vote for the table topics winner. Winner gets to go home with the table topics trophy, which you can put today's date on, so you can always remember that this was the meeting that you won the table topics trophy. Can you do it?
Or a future date if you're bitter about.
There you go. It's inspirational. You can look at it and say, it's a bad day today, but at one point, a couple weeks back, I won the table. And if we could, I'd like to have our meeting minutes taker, Lori, maybe give us just a quick recap of the table topic speakers and
Okay, thank you, Tom. Okay, let's see. Wanzan, you talked about getting involved in a conflict. The question was getting involved in a conflict that didn't concern you. And you talked about in grad school you had a fist fight with a fellow student. But you learned a lot from the experience and learned, maybe you weren't quite grown up then, but you have learned in the future not to hit. I think I hit, oh. Hurt,
That's
sorry,
what I meant.
I couldn't read my writing.
He still
Okay.
hits.
Don't get hurt.
Okay. Sorry about that.
One step at a time.
Oh my
I
gosh.
haven't grown up.
Oh, and Emily, you talked about how you went, if you went far out of your way to help anybody, and you thought of your mom, and how much you think of her, and how she gave up her career to raise you and your sibling. Let's see, I talked about God and how He forgives everybody. Darren, you talked about do you feel grown up? But it's not fun to be serious, so you don't try to act grown up, you act yourself, and you don't want to pretend. So be yourself and you'll be happier. And John Grievous, your question was, do you like your mom or dad better, or who was important in your life? And you mentioned that you admired them both. And I missed the part about your dad, but your mom provided a good example of endurance, and they were both winners in your mind, and how special it was that your wife would ask questions of long ago to your mother-in-law, and about life during the Depression. Lisa, let's see. Oh, when do you think life really began to go so fast? It's when you had your first child, and you wanted to enjoy that child, and then all of a sudden you had twins, and it went very fast, and it was a lot of work, but and you're just trying to keep up. And Alan, did I not write it down? Oh yeah, I did, but okay, anyways, I'll try to remember it. You talked about when you were, sorry, you talked about when you had the experience as a Buddhist monk, and how you shaved your head, and you wore a robe, and there were hardly any, you had no possessions, you ate twice a day, and you kind of spent the day reflecting, and you learned a lot during that time in your life. And yeah, okay. Thanks, Doug.
now
skinny.
Thank you very much.
I remember that speech. And it was exactly as you said. It was, you started talking about how there aren't many other afflictions that people joke about. You know, like that person's injured in some way, but when someone loses their hair, people joke about it. And you know, thought it was going to be funny. And then suddenly you mentioned that you were doing smoke, and everyone was like, and you're like, you're tired? And it was like, wow. And so I've always wanted to ask you, like, how long does it take to become a monk, and how long did you live there? And so I'm glad that you followed up with today.
Yeah.
Excellent. And congratulations for the trophy. Alright, I have no closing comments, no announcements as Toastmaster or as I'm subbing for presidency as well. So in turning the meeting back over to myself, I have no announcements. Does anybody have anything they would like to do? Matt?
I just have one quick plug for if anybody is interested in the positions of VP of Education, which is Wanzan's current position, helping develop those who come in, or VP of Membership, which is myself, essentially being the liaison between those that are guests and members and trying to recruit people. Talk to one of us or or Tom or one of the officers. We just want to get things in line for the next election season.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks, Matt.
So if you have any interest in being in those office roles, let someone know. And we are going to close the meeting right on time. No one has any objections. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.